Ever wondered what people did for fun before smartphones, video games, or even electricity? Let's take a trip back to the 18th century, a time when entertainment was all about creativity, community, and a little bit of friendly competition. You might be surprised to find that some of their favorite pastimes aren't so different from ours, while others, well, they're a world away. First up, let's talk about the simple pleasures. For kids and adults alike, outdoor games were a huge part of daily life. Imagine a sunny afternoon in a village green. You'd see children playing games like hoop and stick, where they'd try to keep a large wooden hoop rolling along with a stick. It sounds simple, but it took real skill and was a great way to burn off energy. Another popular one was shuttlecock, which is basically an early version of badminton, but often played without a net. Players would use small battledores, or paddles, to hit a feathered shuttlecock back and forth, trying to keep it in the air as long as possible. And of course, there were timeless classics like tag, hide and seek, and leapfrog, games that have been passed down through generations and are still played by kids all over the world today. It just goes to show that the joy of running around with friends is truly universal. But what about when the weather turned bad or when evening fell? That's when indoor games took center stage. In cozy, candlelit rooms, families and friends would gather to play. Card games were incredibly popular across all social classes. Games like whist, a trick-taking game that's an ancestor of modern bridge, were all the rage in fashionable parlors. For those who preferred something a bit more strategic, chess and drafts, or checkers as we know it, were staples. These games of skill and intellect were a perfect way to pass a long winter evening, and then there were dice games. They were quick, easy to learn, and relied on luck, making them exciting and unpredictable. From simple betting games played in taverns to more complex versions enjoyed by the wealthy, dice were a source of endless entertainment. Board games were also a big deal. They weren't quite the glossy, colorful boxes we have now, but they were beautifully crafted and thoughtfully designed. Many 18th century board games were race games, similar to snakes and ladders or the game of life. One famous example is the royal game of goose. Players would roll dice to move their pieces along a spiral track, with certain squares helping them jump ahead and others sending them back. These games were often more than just fun. They were educational. Many were designed to teach children about geography, history, or morality, with the game's path representing a journey through life, filled with virtues to be rewarded and vices to be punished. It was a clever way to blend entertainment with education, making learning feel like an adventure. Now, let's talk about something a bit more active and social: dancing. In the 18th century, dancing wasn't just a fun activity. It was an essential social skill. From grand balls in aristocratic palaces to lively country dances in rustic barns, knowing how to dance was crucial for anyone who wanted to socialize and maybe even find a partner. Dances like the minuet were graceful and complex, requiring precise steps and elegant posture. It was a performance, a way to show off your poise and good breeding. On the other hand, country dances were much more energetic and communal. People would form long lines or circles, following a caller who shouted out the steps. These dances were all about community and fun, bringing everyone together in a whirl of music and laughter. Learning these dances was a rite of passage for young people, and dance masters were in high demand. Of course, not all fun and games were so wholesome. The 18th century had its rougher side, and that was reflected in its entertainment. Sports could be quite brutal by today's standards. Boxing, for example, was bare-knuckle, with very few rules. Fights could last for hours and often resulted in serious injuries. Animal sports were also shockingly common. Activities like cockfighting, where two roosters were made to fight, often to the death, drew huge crowds and heavy betting. Similarly, bull baiting and bear baiting, where dogs were set upon a chained bull or bear, were considered mainstream entertainment. It's a stark reminder of how much attitudes towards animal welfare have changed over the centuries. While these activities are rightly seen as cruel today, they were a regular part of life for many people back then, a form of high-stakes, adrenaline-fueled spectacle. But on a lighter note, the 18th century also saw the rise of public entertainment venues. Pleasure gardens were all the rage in cities like London. Imagine a magical park, lit up at night by thousands of lamps, with winding paths, beautiful fountains, and hidden grottos. These gardens, like Vauxhall or Rainella, were places where people from different social classes could mingle. You could listen to an orchestra play the latest symphonies, watch spectacular firework displays, enjoy a meal in an elegant supper box, or simply stroll and people watch. They were like a permanent fairground, a fantasy world where, for the price of an admission ticket, you could escape the dirt and noise of the city and step into a scene of enchantment and romance. Theater was another booming form of entertainment. The 18th century was a golden age for the stage. London's West End was already a hub of theatrical activity, with famous theaters like Drury Lane and Covent Garden putting on plays by renowned writers. Comedies of manners, which poked fun at the pretensions of the upper class, were especially popular. Actors became huge celebrities, with their own fan followings and their lives gossiped about in the newspapers. Much like movie stars today, going to the theater was a major social event. The audience was as much a part of the show as the actors on stage. People would chat, eat, and sometimes even shout comments at the performers. It was a lively, interactive, and sometimes rowdy experience, a far cry from the quiet, reverent atmosphere we expect in theaters today. And what about entertainment you could enjoy right at home? Music was central to 18th century life. For wealthy families, being able to play an instrument like the harpsichord, the flute, or the violin was a sign of a good education and refined taste. Family and friends would often gather for informal concerts in their drawing rooms, playing music by composers like Bach, Handel, and a young prodigy named Mozart. It was a social activity, a way to share a creative passion. And for those who couldn't play, there was always singing. Folk songs, ballads, and popular tunes were sung everywhere, from taverns and workshops to fields and homes. Music was the soundtrack to their lives, a way to tell stories, share news, and express every human emotion. Finally, we can't forget the simple joy of reading. The 18th century saw a massive increase in literacy and the birth of the novel as we know it. Books were becoming more affordable and accessible, and for the first time, people could lose themselves in long, fictional stories. Novels like Robinson Crusoe and Gulliver's Travels became instant bestsellers, taking readers on incredible adventures to faraway lands without ever leaving their armchairs. The rise of circulating libraries meant that even if you couldn't afford to buy books, you could borrow them. Reading became a beloved pastime, offering a private escape, a source of knowledge, and a window into other worlds. It was a quiet revolution in entertainment, one that empowered the individual imagination like never before. So, from the simple thrill of a rolling hoop to the grand spectacle of the pleasure garden, the 18th century was bursting with ways to have fun. They played, they danced, they watched, they listened, and they read. While some of their pastimes might seem strange or even shocking to us, their fundamental need for joy, connection, and escape is something we can all relate to. It reminds us that no matter the era, the human spirit always finds a way to play. Thanks so much for watching this journey back in time. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more adventures into history. See you in the next one.